what we saw professional athletes doing to take care of themselves, the way they worked out, the way they prepped, was something that more and more properties were wanting to bring in because guests were starting to ask for it, right?
If a guest has a specific preference of temperature, of light, being able to have that hotel customize their experience is huge.
Control is phenomenal, but what's next?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Smarter Spaces podcast. I am your host, Michael Trezza. What if wellness wasn't just about a spa treatment or a fitness center, but what if it was a tech-enabled experience woven throughout an entire residence or hotel? In this episode of the Smarter Spaces podcast, we're rethinking what wellness means in real estate and hospitality. From thermal circuits and recovery zones to personalized in-room environments and immersive AI-driven experiences, this is Wellness Reimagined. Join us as we talk to a couple of special guests about how technology is transforming guest experiences and driving real ROI for developers and operators. If you think wellness is just a buzzword, think again. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Smarter Spaces podcast. I am Michael Trezza. Today, we're diving into a topic that is redefining luxury in both hospitality and residential spaces, and that is wellness. We're not just talking about spas and fitness centers. We're talking about a holistic, tech-enabled approach to wellness that's integrated throughout. Today, I'm joined by Amy McDonald, CEO of Under a Tree, a consulting firm that's been at the forefront of wellness strategy for some of the world's top hotels and real estate developments. Amy brings a wealth of insight into how wellness can drive both guest satisfaction and real business results. Amy, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on. Also with us is Michelle Gus, Vice President of Hospitality here at Crestron, who's helping bring these wellness visions to life through smart technology. Things like personalized lighting, climate, audio, so much more, all designed to enhance that well-being. Michelle, welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Michelle. And finally, last but not least, we have Giorgio Galeris, Residential Marketing Manager here at Crestron. Giorgio brings that unique blend of technical expertise and strategic marketing insight with a deep understanding of our smart home and luxury residential technology landscape. Giorgio, welcome. How are you doing today?
Michael, I'm doing awesome. Just super excited to share some insight, gain some insight, and just share how exciting these kinds of conversations are.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. All right. So we have a lot to cover, from immersive experience to regenerative design. So let's dive right in. First, I wanted to start with a concept of wellness. This can apply to many different verticals, and two of the largest that we're going to be talking about are hospitality and residential developments. So this first one's for Amy. What do these have in common, and how do they differ when it comes to wellness in terms of, hospitality and residential?
I think they're predominantly very similar in that often, right, we see mixed use properties where they have to take care of a guest that's coming for a short period of time, but they also have a much more intimate relationship with people that are living there, right? So the base services are often the same. Obviously, with residential, you can do a lot more than just what you would normally do with guest rooms. I mean, I'm talking to a bunch of experts on the phone today, right? So we can dive much deeper into things like sleep and nutrition. And right, because we have a relationship and an ongoing opportunity, right, to help people with their health benefits. But I think the main goal of what we're creating with wellness is the same, whether it's for just a short trip or whether you're going to be, living there.
Definitely. Michelle, how do you think the term wellness applies to hospitality?
Well, I think that in terms of hospitality, it's all about providing the guest with that wellness experience, providing a stay that helps them feel re-energized, invigorated, and really giving them an experience when they're away from their home, staying in a hotel where they can feel that wellness and overall well-being. So there's a lot of ways that hotels can do that. And I think that truly the fact that wellness has become such a popular term, and there is a heightened awareness of it, people are having different types of wellness in their homes. And so they have now had that expectation when they travel in their hotel guest room. And we've seen a lot of hotel properties want to be able to provide that and go above and beyond, in my world, of course, in the tech, to give that overall wellness to the guest. So
right. Giorgio, what do you think about, wellness in the residential side of things and, how that translates into hospitality?
One of the big things when it comes to wellness is both in the residential and hospitality space is its ease of use and how you can implement these wellness practices and ideas. More often, we've seen historically in technological integrations where things can get overcomplicated and cumbersome. And that's quite frankly the opposite of what these wellness initiatives are striving for. So from the resi side or from the hospitality side, making that easy, seamless, and convenient to use and manage is definitely something that we'd love to explore.
Right. Wellness is, all being at ease and being relaxed. And, you don't want that cumbersome experience and complex. You want things to work and do the work for you. So that makes a ton of sense. So Amy, you speak quite often about using the term wellness as opposed to, spa. And why is that? Are there negative or limiting connotations that are associated with the word spa? Why is wellness the preferred term here?
Well, I would like to talk a little bit about how we got here before I define it, because I think it's important. There's been an evolution that I think we've all seen in our own different, worlds as far as the verticals that we work in. So sports performance started to come in to our radar, right? And we're, as consultants, typically working a couple of years out on projects, but sports performance all of a sudden started to take a shift. And what we saw professional athletes doing to take care of themselves, the way they worked out, the way they prepped, the way they recovered, was something that more and more properties were wanting to bring in because guests were starting to ask for it, right? So this is before COVID. So if you think about that started to happen, right? And that was bringing some technology in. So that started to happen. Then COVID hit. Then we had to take wellness into our own hands, literally, with all kinds of handheld things and our own fitness. And so that phenomena started to happen. And so as we moved out of that and places started to open, there were a few things that happened. But the biggest thing that I think happened was the therapists didn't come back. Like, we already had a staff shortage before COVID. And then after COVID, we had even more. So in order to stay viable and relevant, spas had to look at wellness to mitigate and to fill gaps in what they were offering their guests. Because with technology, you can offer something more affordable, something that sells with retail really well, doesn't have a labor burden to it, right? And you don't even need to have a locker room. A lot of what wellness is now, you don't necessarily even have to get changed. So the whole business model changed. The guests changed. The environment changed, right? And then the business model changed. So now what we're seeing is spa is still part of it, right? We define spa as traditional treatments. That's always going to be around, right? It's still really important. But now we see social wellness, right? We see people wanting to come together and share a collective wellness experience. And that can really only be given by technology. So we're seeing a whole bunch of really things coming together. And so I say think wellness because it makes more money. It's more diverse. It is less capital infrastructure. Bathing obviously can have some capital, if you end up having contrast bathing, but even with technology now, you can have indoor and outdoor saunas and cold plunges. And it's evolving quickly. So we like to say wellness because it's more social and it's more vibrant and it creates a better bottom line. So.
Right. It's kind of all encompassing. Michelle, do you find that to be the case on your end of things with spa and other, activities being under that wellness umbrella?
Absolutely. And I think that it's something that is becoming increasingly popular to actually see these spaces transform. I love what Amy said about group wellness and that concept of being able to connect and provide spaces for that. that's definitely something that we're seeing, is to take these spaces and have them be able to transform to accommodate larger groups, to enhance that wellness experience, whether it be the lighting, whether it be the audio, the sounds that people are hearing, the visual, what they see on screens that they might have in these spaces, to really transform them for, either an individual or for a group. So we are seeing that.
Right. So, Amy, you've mentioned, needing to think about, wellness from a holistic approach. What specifically do you mean by that? It's not just technology, building materials, and so on and so forth. It's quote unquote programming as well. Can you expand on that?
So we like to approach wellness. First of all, it's like a wellness continuum. You can have, soft wellness depending on your location and your business model and your budget, obviously, right? And you can go all the way over to something that's more invasive and more medical. And so, there's no right or wrong. It's that wellness, which has spa treatments, right? But it can evolve with a brand and with a business. And then, for us, what we want to look at is, it's a thread that's woven through the property, whether it's only residential, whether it's mixed use, or whether it's only a hotel. And so we always talk about thinking out of the box. Wellness is in F&B. Wellness is the way that you're greeted. Wellness is in your guest room, right? And so that's part of why I always encourage our clients to think, don't think of what happens in the spa. Don't just think about what happens in fitness, but think about the fact that if wellness is celebratory and activated and alive, right? It's very social. Then it can be in the lobby, right? I mean, why don't we have more technology in lobbies for people that they're waiting or they just arrived, and having more of that in their rooms as well? So we just see wellness as something that can be woven through everything, indoor, outdoor. And then the programming piece is things like cooking classes or, depending on where the property is, having things where they're going out and experiencing different things. But programming is really important because people come together that might not know each other and they bond together. I mean, we see a lot of magic happen in properties where people come together to share something. It's everywhere. Wellness is everywhere.
Definitely. Amy, you just mentioned something really interesting, and you used the term outside of the box. Giorgio, in the residential space, do you think there's ways that, wellness can be used thinking outside of the box?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Amy put it beautifully when she said outside of the box, and avoiding the words, or not necessarily avoiding, but pigeonholing in the words of spa. When you use wellness, you can understand that it is far more encompassing. And just as, a home, we see a home as the oasis. That is where you go to relax. That is where you have these moments with your friends and family that are intimate. And in a hospitality space, that's your oasis away from home, right? And so when you have this wellness theme, you're not just thinking of like, oh, I'm going to go home to relax. I'm going to go soak in the tub, or I'm going to go, for a massage at a hospitality space. But instead, you're having that overwhelming encompass of social wellness. Humans are social animals. We need to interact with each other, and it's proven scientific benefit of that. And so when you encompass wellness into these social activities, not just, oh, I'm in a private room getting a massage, there becomes a lot more opportunities for potential. And especially in the home, you're having both guests over or your normal family over every single day. You can make these social experiences happen with a higher level of quality and a higher level of frequency.
That's really good insight. Go ahead, Michelle. You have something?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to touch on something that Amy said too, really how wellness is in every space of the hotel. It isn't in that one designated area of the spa like it, we thought of in the past. And I wanted to say when it comes to technology, and one of the things that I'm being asked for in a hospitality vertical at Crestron is ways to incorporate wellness into these hotel spaces. So you just kind of feel it. You don't necessarily have to say, okay, I'm going to go do this wellness activity in this wellness area. It's just a feeling that you have when you're throughout the entire property. And I think that's really when it's done well, is it's just there, it's in the background, and it's creating a feeling for that guest and an experience for the guest without them having to necessarily go to a special area or reserve something special. Right, Amy? That's kind of what.
Very well said. I was thinking about elevators, like some of the opportunities that we have to, to actually give something really interesting and different, like just in a ride in an elevator, right? We can find whether it's visual, it's obviously technology driven, right? Or anyway, I just think that we have a lot more opportunity. I think that it's never been more exciting than where we are right now with this complete marriage of wellness and technology.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Having that technology work for you just adds to that cohesiveness of the high-end technology and wellness being intertwined. And, going back to when are you most relaxed? When you don't have to worry about, the little things, right? And sometimes technology can be the little things when they're not working at the way it's supposed to. So, this high-end technology really helps facilitate that. So I wanted to move on to the real estate side of things, the development side. So Amy, you mentioned that wellness can offer real estate developers increased net operating income, as well as, that faster path to achieving that desired ROI. How so? How does that hold, for the hospitality industry as well?
I think it's applicable to both. I always see wellness drives indirect and direct revenue. And when I say revenue, I mean revenue, but also, profit. So in a traditional spa where there's treatments and retail and a locker room, right? That more traditional that we've seen. It should be doing at least 20% bottom line profit. Maybe 22, maybe 25, or even sometimes higher, right? Depending on, there's a lot of different things. But if they were to actually, and I'm only talking direct revenue right now, but if they were able to bring in technology and offer wellness offerings that don't have the labor burden, all of a sudden that percentage can go to 30 or more. And if they offer or can offer some type of bathing component where people are charging, right? They're paying access to these incredible contrast bathing experiences. That percentage can go even higher. And so that's all the direct revenue, right? And so what we're seeing is that particular type of offering is driving anywhere from 10 to up to 30% of an increase in the value of the real estate. And that I would say is direct. But some of the other components, right, would be if you have a hotel, it's going to drive greater occupancy, longer length of stay, right? It's going to drive a lot of other things. So it's a powerful tool if it's done properly, and it needs to be more than just spa now to be able to pay for the capital, right? That capital that needs to go into it. So from a real estate standpoint, that increase that they're going to make on a real estate sale is obviously going back in and covering, for a better return on investment.
100%. Michelle, do you have any input on the ROI side of things with hospitality?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that I think Amy brings up some really good points. And I think the way that the industry perceives wellness, I've never gone in and spoken to one of our hoteliers or any of the design specifiers that we work with and talked about wellness and had somebody say, oh, we don't want that, or that they don't get excited about it. They do. But there's so much planning ahead that needs to be in place to be able to actually implement those things. And so I've found that, the ROI, just having that knowledge of the ROI, Amy and her team have done such a great job of defining that, does give them the motivation to do a lot of that pre-planning, to get the right team in place, because it is so critical to the success of the project and having it actually go well and receive the benefits. Is absolutely key. And a lot of times, with the technology, it might be technology that you're already putting in place, but it's thinking about how it can be used from that wellness perspective and then applying that and deploying it so that the guests can use it to experience it. So it's a really great thing. The ROI, of course, is really at the end of the day a key factor to be able to make a developer or an owner or whoever it might be that's making that decision actually move forward with it. There's so much benefit and there is so much ROI, but it's not really well known yet. So I think what Amy and her team has done in defining that is so important.
Well, Michelle, we've been fortunate that we have clients that have been willing to share their information.
Yes.
That's what it takes, right? Everyone knows in theory that this makes sense, but it's still fairly new. It's not like we have clients all the time say, I want to go wherever in the world I need to go to experience what you're talking about. And I'll say, well, there's not a lot of them out there that have been open long enough that you can see, the full return on investment. So we're in that kind of interesting place, right? So that's, I invited clients to share, to share their vision, their the return that they're making, the reason why they've done it, because that's going to elevate and obviously make more investors, but also more developers more comfortable.
Right. That's really important. Clients sharing that information, helps create awareness.
And these podcasts.
Right. This too.
Important.
So, we've been talking about ROI. Let's move on to some ways about increasing revenue through wellness. So let's start in, let's say, the retail space, creating, for example, something much more than a skincare retail area in a spa, taking it to that 360 lifestyle and wellness approach. Amy, what does that look like exactly?
I mean, when you think about all the portable wellness opportunities that you have out there, right? If it's going to, the theory that we used to have of if it's offered in the treatment room, it should be for sale, right? People are going to come out of those, they feel transformed and they want to buy. Well, it's the same with all the wellness products, right? And so we need to have those types of things, obviously, right? We have to have them available. But I also think that we have an opportunity to package, right? Like say, okay, we have a sleep package that you can buy that we can put into your home, right? So it's not just what's on the shelf in retail, but some of the things that they can upgrade to as well. I mean, I think that there's a big opportunity there. Obviously, there's so many things for scanning, right? We can scan our face, we can scan our body and find out all kinds of things now. So I think it's really, important to understand who the guest is, how long they're staying, what's really viable for what they're going to be able to actually do. But then if it's a residential, right, then maybe that's something where you're selling them a package, something that gets put into their rooms. Well, you're probably already doing that, right? So I think that there's a lot of opportunities, but they have to be packaged together and sold.
Right. Piggybacking off that, Amy, Giorgio, how do you think that, transcribes into the residential world in terms of this 360 lifestyle?
So I really liked how you bridged the gap there a little bit, Amy, because when you're home, you become accustomed to certain living experiences. And then when you go to some sort of hospitality setting, you're exposed to different lifestyles, things. And so what happens is that there's this common bleed over between those two. You're accustomed to something at home. Well, when I'm not home, I still want to be accustomed to that. And then when you're staying at a hotel for maybe a short amount of time or maybe a longer period of time, you become accustomed to the technology and the features and that wellness lifestyle and focus on living there. And you want to bring that back into the home. So from a hospitality standpoint, you have a lot of this bleed over. So when you're in a homeowner setting and you're dealing with the residential market, you can tap into those as examples. As we do this in hospitality settings, we could certainly do this in your home, and then vice versa. So the value doesn't have to stay in one of those buildings or the other. It can bleed through. Michael,
I just thought of something else. When you were talking about the retail space, we've always been really big fans of pop-ups. So that retail is constantly kind of changing, right? And it's an opportunity to partner with, whoever the retail partners are. But, pop-ups don't have to be in retail. They could be, in the lobby or even before, like somewhere in the food and beverage area or outdoors. But I think people want to experience something. So choosing partners that are willing to make that type of commitment, because in the end, it's a win-win, right? But if we can get clients to switch a little and try something, they're obviously more likely to purchase an experience, but also to purchase something that they can travel home with or have in their own home.
Right. I think that's really important in the decision-making aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
So Amy, you had mentioned something earlier. You kind of teased it a little bit, but I wanted to take a deeper dive on that. And that's recovery spaces. You mentioned, the cold plunge, things like that. So moving beyond, the classic fitness center, and you had mentioned it before, creating spaces and programs that have different goals. So can you dive into that a little bit deeper? What exactly does that look like?
Well, let's talk about recovery. I think a lot of people are familiar with the term biohacking. I think for a lot of properties, it's not necessarily, they don't want to go that far on that continuum. So we tend to call it recovery. Some of it's what we see with Theragun and Normatec and Hyperice and, all the different types of compression and percussion instruments. All of that. But we also, see this incredible trend, which is sort of ridiculous because we've always done contrast bathing in other parts of the world, right? But this incredible extreme of going back and forth between two different temperatures. And, for a long time, it was just heat. We saw different types of heat and we saw dry heat and wet heat. But now we see all of that. And we see, obviously extreme cold. And, in perfect unison with technology being able to create those experiences in an easier, more affordable way, right, to businesses. We've also seen all the research coming out from, cancer prevention to Alzheimer, brain health. Every type of increase for lots of different age groups, right? Not just for sort of the 25 to, 65. So contrast bathing is here to stay. And because of technology now, you can have a cold experience and stay dry. You don't even have to get, right? There's so much going on in that area. So, that's really what I mean by recovery. It's reducing inflammation. It's obviously reducing stress. It's helping with circulation. It's great for jet lag. So we see a lot of that. We see a lot of IVs. All over the world now, we're having these recovery loungers put in where people can be social and have an IV. Maybe they're dehydrated from traveling, or there's certain vitamin deficiencies. So we're seeing a lot of layering of different types of technology. Where people don't have to get changed. They don't have to go into a locker room or anything, right? They can go in and for 30 minutes have something that, can be layered depending on what they need, whether it's red light or it's halo therapy but lots of different things. And so that to me is all of sort of recovery. And typically we design quiet recovery areas for people that might want to go really deep. And, it's a much more personal experience, but then we also have, sometimes it's the same experience at different times of the day, but very social, as well. Right. And that's sometimes next to a fitness center. Sometimes it's standalone. Sometimes it's in the lobby of a spa. Like it goes in different places. And then outdoor, and then the programming piece, because I think you asked me about that. So,
Correct.
So programming is, all the things that you would think of. It's yoga, it's meditation, it's mindfulness. It can be indoor or outdoor. But then programming can go further than that. Mindfulness is a lot, right? You can do a mindful class, having lunch and not speaking and just being quiet, right? There's a lot of different types of things that you can do for guests that don't cost anything. You don't need any equipment. You just want to have people be more present with whatever they're doing. So programming is vast and large, and it really depends on the location and what type of facilities that you have, right? But biking and hiking, there's so much city tours. But people used to think of that as an activity, and we really see it now as all encompassing as wellness because it's celebratory, it's fun, it's educational, stimulating.
I love that, Amy. I love all of those examples, and kind of going back to the recovery topic, from the hospitality tech perspective, those recovery treatments really can be so beneficial when you're in the right environment as well. So that these are things that, again, these hotel properties need to think about is, okay, if you're going to be providing these types of recovery treatments to maximize the effect, having the right environment for that guest is so critical. So making sure that you have the right audio playing, if it is something where they want to have some type of audio of music, whether it be some type of meditative sound, it's so critical to having those recoveries be a success. And there's so many powerful things that can be done with the technology to accomplish that. So audio is a huge one that we see. Taking it a step further to incorporating the lighting that goes into that space, controlling the temperature of that space, of course, especially, I mean, if it's going to be a cold environment, it has to be cold, but other types of recovery methods, and allowing the person who's actually providing the treatment to easily control and set those things. Because again, they want to be able to use these spaces for multiple different types of recovery. And so having that ability to be able to just have a central control center, a central touchscreen where that person who's going to perform the treatment can put that recovery method on, and it's going to set the entire environment perfectly to be able to maximize the benefit of it. That's really where we see a lot of our technology come in and be able to really take that to the next level. So it's really a powerful thing.
Right, connecting those dots, making it that much more easy on the customer for that recovery experience, which is incredible. So we've talked about increasing revenue through wellness, and one of those ways are one of those methods are thermal circuits. Can you just give the audience, a little bit deeper of a dive on what those actually are, like specific examples of those and how they increase revenue and wellness?
Yeah. So when you think about traditional spa, and this is going back, right? And these are generalizations and predominantly, mostly especially in North America, but 70% of the revenue came from massage. And then if you think about that, right, 55, somewhere between 45 and 55%, typically on the higher end of that, right away went to labor. So for me, when I think about wellness and I talk about the profitability of businesses, that's where wellness comes in, right? So a circuit, if it's hot and cold, even if it's only in a room and it's private and it has a sauna and then a cold plunge, you can charge for it, but there isn't a labor component. Yes, of course, they have to set up the room and all of that, but there isn't that one-on-one for the full hour or 90 minutes, however long. If you think about a recovery lounge, let's just say you have 4 incredible loungers, right, with vibration and heat and red light, and let's say, everyone is having an IV. The only cost to that is the person doing the IV. And typically they're doing multiple, right, at the same time. Very low labor cost to high profit with incredible results, right? So, contrast bathing doesn't have to be that it's a bathhouse and, you're spending millions and millions of dollars to build it. It can be as simple as, a couple of private suites, or it could even be, what we would typically have seen in a locker room, taking it out of the locker room and putting it somewhere where people can share it together. Because, right, with locker rooms, they tend to be still gender specific and people want to do that kind of stuff together. So whether it's a, 50,000 square foot bathing component or whether, quite frankly, it's 500, it's not going to take the labor piece. And people charge and pay for it for access. But you want to do it big enough that you get multiple people coming in and charging, whether, I read an article the other day, it's $45, sometimes it's $75. But thinking about creating experiences where people can be social, that don't take a lot of labor, not that one-on-one intensity of traditional massage, and somewhere where people can go and spend time and pay for the access to it. Makes a lot more money.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting to see how those could increase revenue, because I genuinely, you kind of see what these things are, but you don't necessarily, again, connecting those dots and seeing how that can actually increase revenue. So that was really interesting insight.
Well, and it's not just revenue, right? It's like a higher percentage falls to the bottom line. And that is what we're all looking for, right? How do we make the same amount of money, not put, you don't have, it doesn't have to be more, but there's more profit. And that's the piece that happens when you take out the labor burden that traditional spas have always had. Yeah.
I love looking at it from the labor side of things. And I think that, people, the guests that are coming to the properties now, a lot of them have those types of, they may have a cold plunge tub in their home now. It's so, I could just name many people off the top of my head that I know that have those. So when they travel, if they know that they can go to a recovery lounge and be able to maybe use those types of things, again, they're doing it on their own. They don't need to have a person, there performing a service like a massage. That guest will pay more to stay in that hotel, and they're going to be, loyal to that brand or loyal to that property if they're traveling again, and they're going to get to continue that experience that they may have in their own home, right with their hotel stay. So I know it's so important now, and people incorporate it into their daily lives. I haven't done it personally, but
well, you have to.
I know I need to.
It really is
really interesting.
Extraordinary. Yeah. I always smile when I see that I go into places and I see people competing for how long they can stay in the cold. Mm-hmm. Well, I was 2 minutes and I did it for 2 minutes and 20,
Yep.
It's fun and it's playful and it's, the health benefits are, proven. So.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I'm personally up to about 15 seconds in the cold plunge, and I see people sit there up to their neck for, 5 minutes. And I'm just like, I don't know how you can do it, but it really is amazing. They say you got to work yourself up to it. I go back and forth between quitting and trying to get back in there. So, maybe one day I'll be a champion there, but it's really incredible. So we've talked about technology and wellness, right? And the cohesiveness there. So that comes also, with immersive experiences, right? We've talked about kind of how that automation facilitates making things easier for you. And again, these wellness immersive experiences are curated. They're Amy's hit on it a bunch, multisensory activities, right? Mm. Designed to foster that sense of wellness and connection, right? And Michelle had mentioned it, with the meditation music. This could often involve, nature, art, and again, technology and that mindful practice to promote that holistic transformation. So with all of that being said, Amy, is there a real world example of this in terms of maybe a certain project?
Well, there's a few of them. Yeah. We have some projects that we're doing. One is in Paris, one's in Utah. I think about the Sphere when I went to the Sphere, right? There I was with however many thousands of people, and it blew my mind, right? Like, it was like, this is wellness. We're all sharing this incredible experience, right? And the chairs were vibrating, and there's going to be more and more of them for a whole bunch of reasons, right? You're the experts in technology. It's getting easier, and there's more applications for it, and it can be more multifunctional than ever before. That's what people want. Like, I think even about was it Picasso? Who was the artist that did the tour all around the world?
I think it was Monet. Was it?
Monet.
Maybe it was, right. Anyway.
You walk through and the immersive art and everything. Yeah, I've seen those.
That to me is wellness. Yeah. But so I know you're looking for examples, Michael.
Well, those are the Sphere, and those art examples are, those are immersive examples.
But there are more coming. I would say, like what we've seen with recovery and contrast bathing now, it's everywhere. And I think that's what we're going to see with immersive experiences, because technology can take us into another reality probably faster than really anything else, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. You start to see more and more immersive exhibits of things, art and music and different cultures and stuff. So, and it's just gonna go up. So that's really cool. So we've been talking about, wellness in many different examples and scenarios, and we've teased a lot of this. But I wanted to ask about another one. So Michelle, how do we bring that wellness experience into guest rooms And how can we extend that wellness experience into individual residences and real estate developments?
Yeah, so I think for us, we really focus on what the technology can do for the environment of the guest room space. So again, it plays into those technologies that have to do with the environment, controlling the electric light in the room, and then also controlling the daylight, the natural light that comes in and out of the room is key. Things like tunable lighting, where you can actually adjust the lights themselves to be able to have a circadian rhythm, is absolutely a huge feature that can help to increase wellness for a guest as they stay in a room when they're traveling. You think about people that are traveling from long distances, or people that may be, for example, a doctor that might be working at night and may need to sleep in a hotel during the day. Being able to have that electric lighting in the room change to adjust to the desired circadian rhythm of that guest is a huge feature that we see. So again, having that light change from those warmer tones as the day begins, having that kind of middle of the day be the brightest, whitest tones, and then having those fade off again to more of those warm tones in the evening can really help to get the rest that the guest may need. So lighting is a huge part of that. Again, being able to control the natural lighting using motorized window coverings in a room, that all leads to it. People trying to get that great restful sleep, being able to have complete blackout in the space. And when they wake up, having those shades or drapes very slowly open for them. Huge, huge parts of wellness technology in the room. And then, like I mentioned before, the sounds, audio is becoming more and more popular in guest rooms, and being able to allow a guest to play a wellness or a recovery playlist, for example. If the hotel wants to offer a curated list, we see that request quite a bit, where someone might be able to select that when they're in their room and kind of enjoy those sounds. And it might even be paired with what is then on the TV in the space too. So 80% of the time, the TV is off and it's just a big black hole on the wall. But when you can incorporate different types of visuals from nature, it can not only make use of that device that's just sitting there as a black hole in the space a lot of times, but it can really enhance the overall sense of well-being for those guests. We see this quite a bit, even in spaces where maybe the hotel doesn't have a beautiful view, and they want to be able to have some nice scenes come up on that display. That's a really great way to use the technology. And then from a sustainability perspective, which I think goes hand in hand with wellness, but may not be as much of a guest experience, having a really nice software on the back end. Crestron provides them. We've got some great partners that provide them, where the hotel can then be able to easily manage all of these devices in the room to maximize the energy consumption and really, really create a good sustainable environment. With the last piece of that being, of course, the HVAC control. That is huge. Not only having a really nice temperature for the guest, but also, again, when the guest isn't in the room, what happens in that space? Can the hotel have that go to a specific temperature or turn off when the guest isn't there to save energy? It all kind of ties together with sustainability. So it's a lot of things that you can do. And then a lot of people, they have this type of tech in their home already. So they're expecting it in the hotel. And if they don't, they get to experience it in the hotel. And then they want to be able to have that in their own homes in an even more customized experience for them. So it really kind of goes hand in hand. And I will say that one of the kind of coolest new things that I'm seeing is if a guest has a specific preference of temperature, of light, of audio, being able to actually have that saved as a profile of that guest. So whenever they're there, or if they're traveling to multiple properties for that brand, being able to have that hotel customize their experience and already know ahead of the time what the guest wants. It's huge.
Personalization is so huge now. Before you even step foot on the property, everything's already set. Giorgio, does that, a lot what Michelle just said, does that translate over, to personal residential applications as well? Or is that, mainly just in guest rooms and hospitality?
It translates far more than most people would expect. Quite frankly, when you have this type of technology and as it's becoming more approachable, more widespread, and we are as a society being more exposed to it, the desire starts to build, and it has been building for decades now. But we're seeing that in the hospitality spaces when you have this incredible technology integration and what I like to refer as true automation, right? Control is phenomenal. We love to control things. I love to press a button and have the lights come on, or press a button and have the music start playing. That's phenomenal. But what's next? It's that automation. When things happen without you having to actually consciously press a button, give a command in any shape or form, that is the echelon that we're stretching to and pushing towards now. So Michelle had an awesome example of the quote unquote, that profile following that guest to, the different locations that they're staying in. And so their preferences always follow with them. That enables that level of automation that we're starting to seek now. And in the wellness space, we've said it before, but I'll say it again. When one of the best things about wellness is that you don't have to mindfully pursue wellness. Wellness can transcend through everything that's going on in a property, whether it's your home or whether it's a hospitality setting. And it should, quite frankly, because that's when it's working at its maximum efficacy. And so when you're talking about things of lighting with circadian settings and shading, going up and down to, as the schedule is in the home, or the music playing or turning off, more importantly, when it's the late hours of the day, you want to be able to control all of that. And if you don't have to mindfully press something or give some sort of command to make it happen, all the better.
So, Amy, I've seen some of your presentations where you talk about, direct and indirect revenue. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, let's talk about traditional spa. So direct revenue from traditional spa has been treatments predominantly, right? The revenue that you get from that, and retail. Maybe there's a membership piece. But that's always been direct. Like that particular department is creating direct revenue. So if you bring in wellness in multiple different ways, that 20% that I had talked about, right, can be 30 or even 35. We are seeing some models now that will probably go up to 40, only because they have a robust membership piece. So the direct revenue is what comes out of that area. That's people purchasing access to water therapies. That's people purchasing retail. That's people purchasing an opportunity to have an IV, right? So all of that is direct revenue with a better profit margin because it has less labor. The indirect revenue, and we'll split it out. The indirect revenue is a higher ADR, a longer length of stay because you have more, right? More that a guest can do, a higher repeat guest. Like all of that is indirect. The other piece that's indirect is the increase that you are able to get off of a residential component. So we just refer to that as indirect because you have wellness, your hotel does better, your F&B does better, you have a more robust membership if you have membership. But if you're selling real estate, you're yielding a higher profit, a higher number on the real estate sales. So that's sort of how I like to look at it is it's direct, but that's not enough. What it really does is all the indirect increases make the business much more profitable.
Thank you for that insight there.
Thank you for asking.
Of course. So let's move on to something that I personally find really interesting, and that's the impact of technology in reducing labor costs, right? And some of those, pressures, so to speak, right? So, Amy, I'll direct this first one at you. So how does that exactly work? And then Michelle and Giorgio, I will get your insight on this as well.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about bathing, We've talked about more traditional recovery where you're on a lounger and, maybe you're layering on different types of technology. There isn't really any labor required for that at all, other than greeting someone and sitting them down and maybe helping them put it together, right? People want a collective experience. So technology allows you to create an experience and turn it on and let them have their experience without that one-on-one piece that we've been talking about. So without technology, I don't know that our business would survive. Like we absolutely need each other.
Michelle, do you see this on the hospitality side of things in terms of technology impacting, labor costs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that especially the piece that I spoke about earlier when it comes to having a nice software in place that manages the technology is really where it can impact labor costs. Because again, in some hotels, you may have seen this before when you would manually put your do not disturb or your makeup room little hanger on the door. Somebody has to manually go around and see that physically. Maybe you want your room made up. Maybe you want to have a wellness treatment in your room. Being able to access that required labor and people answering the phone, coming to the guest room, where now the technology in place can tie through software to different systems, like being able to book a treatment or book a recovery room, for example, all through your own mobile device. You set it, you go to the location, have your treatment, that's it. It also allows to be able to have somebody on the back end that can manage all of those devices in the room through a dashboard to be able to know, hey, is there something offline? Could there be a potential issue with the HVAC in the room? Those types of things, knowing ahead of time, being able to fix those issues. Again, you're cutting back on the labor, on the amount of people that you need, physically going out and making those checks. The technology is actually doing the work for the property. So it can save quite a bit on labor and allow the property to be just very efficient in all ways. So that's another really key point of the tech.
And the ease for the guest, right? I mean, when
Yes.
you talk about that, I just think about how empowering it is that you have that app and you can do those things for yourself as a guest, right? I mean, it's just ease.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stress-free.
It's incredible how far things have come. Just the simple things like you mentioned about just like the do not disturb door hanging sign. Now it's all, automated and at scale, right? You can, now there's platforms and everything to manage that where you can look at that from a bird's eye view and know, who's going to what rooms versus, having to send someone there just to see, oh, we're not going to do housekeeping yet because they have a little paper thing hanging from their doorknob. So it's incredible how far we've come in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
So we hear the word sustainability a lot, and Michelle actually brought it up earlier, and I believe it plays a part in this entire scope of wellness as well. But I believe there's actually, an evolution past sustainability. So, Amy, why do we need to evolve past sustainability to regenerative systems and design in that aspect?
Well, when we think about our health, do we want to sustain our health for our lifetime or do we want to improve it and optimize it? Right? I mean, we all want to optimize our health at whatever age, but sustaining means that it's status quo. And so, we're encouraging and certainly part of the conversation, and our part is small with what we do, but with developers and real estate developers in particular, is to think about how do we come into a place, build a place, operate a place, and it's better than it was when we came? And how do we do that, right? And so it's really looking at it as a much bigger organism. You're looking at the land, you're looking at, the watershed and what's happening up in the mountains and how it might affect your hotel, like looking at it much broader than this is the piece of land that I'm going to be building and operating my business. So it starts much bigger. And by doing that, you're thinking about ecosystems and an ability to regenerate an area and make it even better. in a lot of different ways. And a lot of it's community is what are you doing to give back to the community to make it better, to make it healthier, to make it more not just sustainable, but actually where it regenerates itself. You know, we've seen some clients that build schools and their employees get to go. And when the students do really well, the employees get raises as parents, right? Like there's lots of different ways to give back to a system where it's going to not, you're giving, but it's like forward, right? You're bringing something forward that comes back to you. But everything that we were just talking about is also regenerative because we're saving on electricity. We're saving on water consumption, right? I mean, some of the examples that Michelle gave, I mean, we need to have financial regeneration as well, right? So we're starting to hear more about regenerative thinking even beyond, right, into the regional and local areas and what the effect of a project will have and how can it elevate all of the systems from the flora and fauna to the, everything gets improved.
It's incredible to think about it that way because, you normally just think of, sustainability, right? Like sustainable, that's great. But then, truly, as you mentioned, that key word being regenerating is something that's truly fascinating in that regard. So Michelle, obviously, in the AV industry with integrators, we often see successful system or space types, so to speak, recreated and deployed at scale. That could be, universities, enterprises, some of these, cookie cutter designs, so to speak. So in terms of wellness, is that ever the case? Will we see personalized wellness solutions that can be retained and recreated even in multiple properties across a hospitality portfolio? Is that kind of the standard there, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think that personalization ties back to the guest and the information that that the guest is willing to provide the hotel property with what those preferences are. And previously, there really was never a software or mechanism to be able to do that. But it is something that we're starting to see come on the market now. We're starting to see developed. Crestron, as a technology on the back end would tie to those softwares to allow that guest profile and those personalized preferences of the guest to be able to be used wherever they might be staying. If that particular hotel is a brand and has multiple properties, I was mentioning it before, if you have a guest that is looking for that wellness lifestyle, they're going to be loyal to that brand and they're going to want to stay there. And so wherever those properties may be, having those personalized preferences come along with them is key. And that is something new. It's a trend that we're starting to see. The market is wanting it and needing it. So we are starting to see some of those solutions. And of course, our technology ties right into that.
Definitely. Giorgio, do you see that, on the residential side of things with maybe, since obviously all homes are different, but are there integrators and builders / developers that are maybe doing some of these similar, wellness concepts in different homes as part of their offerings?
Absolutely. It's one of those things that is proving to be a huge market differentiator. You have solutions that you can provide to a homeowner or solutions that you could provide to a hotel setting. And when it's different than whatever else is going on in the market, there's a lot more attention being brought to you. You're kind of getting that word of mouth. You're being a part of conversations that you weren't necessarily a part of, moments before. And not only is it fantastic for the hospitality, like the hotel, the brands, that exist and implement these types of solutions, but also the integrators, the partners that deploy these solutions when their business is built to have these. Cookie cutter is a way to put it. I think of it as like a standardization, a package that you can deliver to a customer and say, with this package of audio, lighting, and control solutions, you can deliver X, Y, and Z experience to your guest, or you can deliver X, Y, Z experience to a homeowner. That makes it far more digestible for them to understand, and also makes it easier for them to perceive the value of it a lot more, because that's the big wall that I've seen in this industry and in this topic, is that the value is there. No one can say, oh, there's no value in that. But what is a little harder to telegraph is how can we perceive how much value is there and how can we get that across? So we see that both on the hospitality and definitely the residential side.
Right. About, providing that vision, right? By homeowners, end users can be overwhelmed by technology sometimes. So I think it's really valuable in them providing that vision of what the end goal is, right? What's the end result? What do you as the customer, the client, whomever the stakeholder is there, what do you get out of this? And what's the end game here? And then they think about it and they go, oh, that sounds incredible. And let's make it happen. So, Amy, are there challenges in creating and deploying these wellness solutions? A lot of times it can get tricky when there's multiple stakeholders involved. So, how do you get buy-in from everyone in these scenarios?
Well, that's a really good question. It's why I started speaking, doing webinars and interviews, to show the business case. Because at the end of the day, we have to have that business case. And we've been in situations where the developer has wanted something unique and different, and the hotel brand has said, we don't do that. It's not part of our standards. And we're in the middle, right? And so for us, our responsibility is to go to the owner, the developer, and say, if you do this, this is what it's going to cost. And this is how much it's going to make. This is the return on it as well. Whether they agree to that or the brand agrees to it, like for us, it's just empowering them with the information that they need to know so that they can make a decision. And so that was a challenge over the last few years. Now I find, and it's happening really quickly, thanks to what all of us do, is now we can say, do you want to do 20% profit or do you want to do 40? And then that's just direct revenue, right? Then look at what it will do. I mean, now we have more data from third party. We have more information than just like under a tree's opinion, right? So there's a lot more out there that we can quote and go back to. And so now I'm finding that it's not that difficult, but it has to come down to the financial piece.
Right. That's really important. Michelle, have you seen any challenges overall on your end of things in your day-to-day with these? Do you see like certain challenges more than others?
I think, as I kind of mentioned earlier on, the biggest challenge is, I think, understanding what is required to actually deploy these technologies and planning early enough ahead of time to be able to successfully deploy them. So typically, we encourage to get involved in the project as early as possible, whether that's the design team, the consulting team, like Amy's, can definitely make this go a lot more smoothly. The challenge is when decisions have been made or products and devices, technologies have gone in that then cannot easily be changed. So we want to do it right the first time. And plan ahead for that type of technology, and also use it as a feature to be able to have higher value for that property, whether it's what the guest is paying, that ROI that's coming back. Just really planning ahead, I think, is the biggest challenge to actually having it go successfully from the deployment side and from the usage. Yeah.
Well, and Michelle, I can't believe I didn't say this when you asked about a challenge. I mean, our biggest challenge is coming in when the architects have already designed something and they have no idea how much money it's going to make. They don't know if it's on trend. They don't know if it's functional, right? And I don't want to offend architects. It's been traditionally what we've done, right? Developers want something, they need to have some idea of what it's going to look like to be able to make, whether it's getting investment or whatever it is that they need, right? And so we're finding more and more that now we come in early enough that we can define, you need multifunctional spaces because technology is evolving so quickly, right? That are you going to have cryotherapy? Are you going to have hyperbaric? Some of those decisions have to be made because they have to be in a room, right? But for the most part, we try to create open-ended spaces as much as we can so that as wellness evolves, the space will be able to hold that. That's one of the biggest challenges is we come in too late.
Right.
Or they say, oh, we don't want membership. Oh, okay. So you put it together, right? You know exactly how many people on any given day are going to be on the property, whether they're coming from the homes or whether they're guests, right? We have a whole system. We come down to exactly what they're doing, where they are, how long they spend. And then you design it and you put the pro forma together. And then they say, oh, we really want members. And I'm like, Okay. So the public spaces, right, like can't hold all of that. And so often it's too late to go back. And so, we see that spaces do not reach their full potential from the guest experience, from a differentiation, but also from a profitability standpoint. So thank you, Michelle, for bringing it up. I can't stress the importance of getting the people that are looking at the business model to come in first before you go in too far into design.
Right. Sequentially, that's super important. And, sometimes developing the stages ahead of time, pre-planning is a little bit easier said than done. But, the more things are laid out to a T, and all those, design considerations and the whole nine that goes involved in that is super important in that regard, to hopefully overcome those challenges or, limit some of those challenges as well along the way.
Exactly.
Guys, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation on technology in wellness and hospitality and real estate. This has been a super fascinating conversation. So I can't thank you guys enough for joining. I hope you guys found some insight here on this conversation.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael, as always, for having us.
And that wraps up this episode of the Smarter Spaces podcast. A huge thank you to our guests, Amy, Michelle, and Giorgio, for helping us rethink what wellness really means in luxury spaces and how technology can elevate the entire experience. If you found today's conversation valuable, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and follow Crestron on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and X to stay up to date on future episodes, behind the scenes content, and more insights from industry leaders. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on the Smarter Spaces podcast.